Hi, welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine with Pick and Pay and the end of 2019. It's been a very memorable year, headlined I think for most South Africans by a small rugby tournament in Japan, but also highlighted certainly for me by many wonderful wine discoveries through the course of the year and another year of adventure with some of the best wines in the world, namely those of South Africa. And it has been a year of many high points, but it's also been a year of challenges. And it's one of those particular challenges that brings this year of wine shows to an end. One of my favourite estates in South Africa is Lismore. It's just outside of Greyton. It's an estate I've visited on a number of occasions, usually when I've been with the Absa Cape Epic, and I've dropped in to meet the owner, to go and try the wine and to enjoy the views that spread out from atop the homestead at the estate. It's always been an absolute pleasure. And I remember the first one in particular, the Epic was going through Greyton. I'd made some phone calls because it turned out there was only one person who had a wine estate in Greyton. There were two winemakers. There was Andy Mitchell and his daughter Olivia, who were in the town of Greyton itself. But as for a proper wine estate with full production, it was somebody called Samantha O'Keefe with Lismore. So I got hold of her, she invited me around, and I had an absolutely lovely afternoon tasting through a selection of wine that at that stage wasn't terribly well known. What has become better known since is not just the wine, but also the Samantha O'Keefe story. She left California, had a great business, came over to South Africa to raise her two young sons. That was 2003. She bought the estate. They told her you couldn't possibly make wine in the Greyton area, but she proved everybody wrong. It wasn't an easy journey to start with. The marriage didn't work out and she was under a lot of pressure business-wise. But then one of Robert Parker's wine advocates, critics, gave her some great reviews. Things picked up. And now you find Lismore wine all over the world. 70% of it exported from South Africa, and a terrific selection of initially whites and now a Syrah as well. So why is it a sad story? Well, if you know the wine world, you'll probably know that just a few weeks ago, Lismore was the victim of a nasty fire, a fire that wiped out just about everything. Took out the homestead, took out the cellar. It looks like some of the vines might have survived, but unfortunately, it's back, if not quite to square one, then close to it, for somebody who has been dynamic, been inspirational, been a breath of fresh air, probably the best American import we've ever had in South Africa. We've given America Trevor Noah, Charlize Theron, Elon Musk, Dave Matthews, and we've got Samantha O'Keefe in return, and I think that's a pretty good exchange. So really tough time for Samantha. She's been through hell over the last few weeks, but offsetting that, at least to a degree, the news that her current vintage is safely in storage in Stellenbosch, so we will see wines in 2020, and that the wine community has come out and been hugely supportive, offering not just monetary support, but also space for grapes, help in redeveloping the estate, space to be able to make wine, just being really, really supportive. And it shows just how close-knit our wine community is. And that, for me, is a silver lining to what has otherwise been a really, really tough story. So what I thought I'd do this week, in tribute to not just one of my favourite winemakers, one of my favourite people in the wine industry, is to pay tribute to Samantha with some of the wines that have put her on the international winemaking map. And I'll start with a wine that we don't see a huge amount of in South Africa, and that is Viognier. Probably most people will try it when they have an SMV, a Shiraz Mourvèdre Viognier, but there is some really nice plain Viognier. Charles Back was the man responsible for giving Viognier a real push into South Africa. This is Lismore's Age of Grace, and it's just it's a glorious, glorious colour, and it's been aged for now almost 4 years as we head into 2020. There's a beautiful perfume to that, really intense. One of the big trends in 2019 has been the Yankee candle. My wife's got about 700 of them, and they come in daft collections of flavours. Flavours, is that what candles are? Aromas, sort of burnt cinnamon and autumn in Helsinki, and the kind of things you normally associate with really over-the-top tasting notes for wine. I reckon Yankee candle makers, aged white wine would be a brilliant candle. I'll buy masses of them, especially if they've got this particular nose. It's so fragrant, it's so lush. And the wine, just as good as the nose. Not quite as intense as that perfume. It's a little more delicate, but there's a real richness to it. The aging of a few years has certainly helped as well. As I say, Viognier, we don't drink a huge amount of it, so maybe as we adventure into 2020, there's a grape to have a crack at for something that's just got a little more breadth to it. Just such a glorious nose. Probably buy that for the nose alone, much as one does a Yankee Candle, really. Now, the challenge with getting hold of this Viognier is there's not a huge amount made, 7,000 bottles or thereabouts, and going forward, I'm not sure what the exact production is going to be like over the next few years as Sam finds her feet again. This one also, with so much wine exported, is a rarity, but one worth searching for. A little easier to find, certainly at the moment, is the Chardonnay. In fact, it is on the shelves of some of the Pick and Pay stores at the moment. It's the wine that first made me fall in love with Lismore, and Samantha herself, of course, is utterly charming and just such a vibrant and passionate person about life in general and wine in particular. But this Chardonnay she gave to me, and this was the one that made me so it's like, you know what, you've found the right place to make wine and you've proven everybody wrong that you can't do what you are doing. So this is a more recent version. I'll try a slightly older one in a moment. Again, like the Viognier, just a touch older, 2016. Again, not a dissimilar colour. And again, oh, we found another Yankee Candle. This one's got almost a bit more of a Turkish delightish nose to it. Again, intense, again, rich. Leads to a very different wine though. There's a bit of French oak in that, and it comes through not overpoweringly, but gives a nice smooth backbone to the rest of the wine. The citrus is powerful as well. There's a real sense of balance, and that's always been key to Samantha O'Keefe's wines. Actually, that's not entirely true. Mostly a sense of balance. I do remember being slightly unbalanced by the end of the tasting with her, but otherwise generally very balanced indeed. Yeah, and lends itself to even more aging. I think drinking really nicely now though, so look out for this. As I say, it is in Pick and Pay, and a good way to support Samantha. So this is the 2016 Chardonnay. What I thought I'd do is I'd delve back, and I think this might have been one of the first bottles that I ever got. Samantha was always incredibly generous. I'd asked to buy some wine and she'd refuse to let me pay for stuff, and we'd have to argue and haggle, and she's always been a wonderful supporter. If I've had charity events, she's always been the first person to send wine along, and it's been a joy to spread her particular gospel, because not only is her story great, but her wine is there to match. So this now is coming up to 8 years old as a Chardonnay. And over the last few years, drinking slightly older Chardonnay has been a real pleasure. One of the nicest wines I had over the Christmas period was a 2014 Chardonnay from Sumeridge. We know them in particular for their Pinot Noir. They've had a few 5 stars from Platter over the last few years, but I think that 2014 Chardonnay is as good as anything they've made. Ooh. It's almost sort of a bird's interest to that nose. It's got a bit older. Great colour. Oh. Another rousing endorsement of keeping your Chardonnay in particular for just a bit longer. It's really deep there. That burnt citrus follows through as well. Oh, that's really, really, really good. It's crying out for a plate of big fresh scallops. I'm not sure I'll find any in Johannesburg today, but I shall think about them as I drink this. Just the age, And there's probably also the added level of knowing that this is some of the Lismore history which has now been interrupted with a very sad chapter to the story, but that story's certainly not finished, and Sam will bounce back, and I think she'll be inspired by wine like this that shows her just how well it holds, how well she's making wine, and how a bottle like this can tide her through the tough times before the better times to come. And then to the last of them, and this is Sam's red. I think I tasted her red on the second visit that I made to Lismore, and I'd absolutely loved her white. I'd kind of got it into my head, Sam O'Keefe makes white wine. Lismore is about white wine. Red wine, you sometimes get to a wine estate, you find a wine label, and they try and do a bit too much. I think we need a white blend. I think we need to throw in a Malbec. We need to create some dessert wine, and maybe it's not the right space for them. Maybe it's not the right terroir. They don't have the right conditions for a particular grape. And yeah, you do see that from time to time. And so I was a little bit skeptical as I got handed this red. Well, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, the New York Times, was it? One of the big New York publications had the Lismore Syrah as one of their 100 wines to drink for the year. And around the world, it has given the white wine some serious competition as the flagship for the estate. It's Syrah is the only red wine made, and just the softness and the elegance of it has been a wonderful addition to what was already a pretty all-star lineup. So this, the 2016, a wine that's found its way to many corners of the world. So the nose has got that kind of sweet savoury combination, sort of when you caramelise red onions, that kind of bit of sweetness, bit of savoury, but then into just a very straight sheeting elegance. So the nose has got that sort of sweet savoury combination. Think about, for instance, when you caramelise red onions, you've got that sweetness but also the savoury to it. That's the nose. Once you get through to the wine though, it's a straight sheeting elegance. There's a slightly unripe cherry to it. Really smooth. And just that balance that is Sam O'Keefe to the tea. I'm not sure this one would make quite such a good Yankee Candle, but it does make an excellent wine, and that speaks to Sam as a whole. And I know, Sam, if you happen to be watching this, that you've been through a really, really difficult time, but I hope that the support of your friends in the wine world, and you have many, many, many of them, will help to get you through the next period of time. You've already given us such an inspirational story in South African wine. You did so much that people didn't think could be done, and I know you're going to come back from this particular challenge and continue making some of South Africa's finest wine. If you do want to support, then very simple way to do it. Go and have a look out for some of the Lismore wine. As I say, the Chardonnays in some of the pick and pay stores at the moment. Find it, drink it, look for it on wine lists. If you're around the world, you will find it in different parts of the world, flying that South African flag. Not just a great way to support South African wine, but a great way to support a South African winemaker who could do with a little bit of help at the moment. So, end of 2019, thank you for all your support. Keep drinking, keep exploring, keep trying new South African wine. We do make the best in the world, in my very unbiased opinion. If you're not a member of the Pick and Pay Wine Club, grab your Smart Shopper card, send that text message through to the number on screen at the moment with your Smart Shopper card number. It's free of charge. Join that wine club and spend 2020 exploring new worlds of wine, and in particular, the fabulous wine of South Africa. Sam O'Keefe, here's to a much better 2020. See you all next year. Cheers.